If your ads aren't working, it's probably not your targeting, it's your creative. And more importantly, how that creative is being made. Because tools like Canva and AdCreative are solving the same problem, but in completely different ways. One is built around templates that you customize. The other is built around AI that generates ads for you. So in this video, I'm gonna walk through both of them, show you how they actually work, how pricing plays into it, and how to decide which one makes more sense depending on how you create ads. I'm Erin from AI Academy. Let's get into it. Why this actually matters. Before we get into the tools, I want to frame this in a way that actually helps you make a decision. Because when people say I need to make ads, that can mean two very different things. You either need something that helps you design ads, or you need something that helps you figure out what actually performs, and those are not the same thing. One is about how the ad looks, the other is about how the ad performs once it's live. So as we go through AdCreative and Canva, keep that in mind because that's what this decision really comes down to. All right, so starting with AdCreative, right away you can see how this is positioned, and this matters more than people think. It says here where AI meets high-performing ad creatives. So from the beginning, this is not trying to be a design tool. It's positioning itself as something that helps you create ads that perform. And that tells you what kind of user this is built for. It's not really for someone who just wants to design something nice. It's for someone who wants better results from their ads. As you scroll, you start to see how that actually plays out. So you'll see sections like your all-in-one marketing powerhouse and different types of outputs like product videos, ad creatives, and product shoots. But the key thing here is that everything is built around output and variation. You're not starting from scratch. You're not dragging things around. You're feeding the system's inputs and it's generating options for you. And that completely changes how you approach creating ads. Because instead of spending time designing one version, you're reviewing multiple versions and choosing what works. When you get into the actual flow, this becomes even clearer. You're entering your brand, your product, your messaging, and it generates ad creatives for you. And this is the part people underestimate. The goal here isn't to create something perfect, it's to create enough variations to test. Because the fastest way to improve ads is not to design better, it's to test more. And that's what this tool is really built around. And this is one of those things that's honestly worth clicking into and just trying for a few minutes, because you'll immediately see how different this feels compared to building ads manually. What people get wrong about AI ads. One thing I want to point out here, because this is where people misunderstand tools like AdCreative. A lot of people think AI replaces thinking, like you just press a button and suddenly you have a perfect ad, and that's really not how it works. What it actually does is remove the slow part of the process, so you're not spending time designing, you're spending time evaluating. So instead of asking, how do I make this look better, you're asking which version is getting the best response. And that's a completely different mindset, because most beginners spend way too long trying to make one ad perfect. But in reality, ads don't improve because they look better. They improve because you test more variations and you learn faster. So tools like AdCreative aren't magic. They just make iteration faster, and that's what gives you an edge. So that's AdCreative. Now let's switch over to Canva, because this is where the approach is completely different. Now looking at Canva right away, you can feel the difference in how this is positioned. It says create powerful ads with our free ad maker, and that wording actually tells you a lot about how this works. Instead of generating ads for you, it's helping you create them. And that sounds similar at first, but the experience is completely different once you actually start using it, because here you're still the one building everything. You're deciding what the ad looks like, what the message is, and how everything comes together. And honestly, this is what people are already used to. If you've ever made an Instagram post, a presentation, or even just edited something quickly for content, this is going to feel really familiar. You're not learning a new system, you're just using tools to put something together visually. And for a lot of people, that's actually a big advantage. It feels simple, predictable, and you know exactly what you're putting out. There's no guesswork in terms of what the tool is doing. You're in control from start to finish, which makes it a really comfortable place to start if you're newer or you just want something that works without overthinking it. As you scroll, you'll see things like how to make an ad, and it walks you through the process step by step. You're choosing a template, uploading your images, adjusting text, and moving things around until it looks right. And this is where Canva feels really easy to use, because you're not starting from a blank screen, you're starting from something that already has structure. So instead of figuring out layout or design from scratch, you're just modifying what's already there. And that's why people can create something decent pretty quickly without needing any real design experience. experience, it lowers that barrier a lot. But at the same time, this is also where people tend to get stuck without realizing it because everything is still on you. If your ad doesn't perform, you don't always know what to change. You might go back and tweak the colors, you might rewrite the headline, swap the image, but you are still guessing and there's no clear feedback loop built into the tool itself. So while Canva makes it easy to create, it doesn't necessarily make it easier to improve, and that's an important distinction, especially if you're trying to actually get results from your ads and not just make them look good. Now, Canva does have AI features, and you'll see things like Magic Studio, background removal, and also different editing tools. You have Magic Grab, Magic Eraser, Magic Write, Translate. So these editing tools really help speed things up, and they're really useful. They make the process smoother, faster, and also a little less formal. But even with those features, the core experience hasn't really changed. It's still template based. You're still starting with something and customizing it into your own version. So the AI here is more like support. It helps you execute faster, but it's not making those decisions for you. You're still choosing what the ad looks like, what it says, and how it's structured. And that's really the key difference compared to something like AdCreative. Because with Canva, you're thinking more like a designer. You're asking yourself, does this look right? Does this feel clean? Would I click on this? And you're relying on your own judgment. Whereas with AdCreative, you're shifting into a different mindset. You're not just thinking about how it looks, you're thinking about how it actually performs. And neither approach is wrong. It really just depends on how you like to work. If you enjoy being hands-on and having full control over what you're creating, Canva is going to feel really natural. But if you don't want to rely on guesswork and you care more about results and speed, that's where the difference between templates and AI starts to matter a lot more. Where Canva already wins. Now, to be fair, Canva has a big advantage that a lot of people overlook. It's predictable. You know exactly what you're going to get. You can open a template, you customize it, and you end up with something clean. And that is really, really valuable, especially if you're early on, because when you're starting out, you don't necessarily need 20 variations. You just need something that looks good enough to launch. And Canva makes that easy. It also works really well if you're creating across multiple platforms, not just ads, but social posts, thumbnails, emails, presentations. So instead of switching tools, everything lives inside of one place. And for a lot of people, that simplicity is more important than optimization because consistency beats complexity in the beginning. So Canva isn't worse, it's just optimized for a different stage. Key difference. So if we zoom out for a second, this is really the core difference. Canva helps you create ads while AdCreative helps you generate and test ads. With Canva, you're involved in every decision, and with AdCreative, you're focusing more on choosing and testing. So one gives you control while the other gives you speed. Now, looking quickly at pricing for AdCreative, you'll see plans starting at around $25 per month. So right now they are having a deal. You can save $168. So if you want to take advantage of this deal, you can use our link down below to sign up. So as we mentioned, the starter plan is $25 and then it goes up to around $149 and higher depending on the usage. And the reason for that pricing is because you're paying for output. You're paying to generate more creatives, test more variations, and move faster. So this tends to make more sense if you're actually running ads and using those creatives to drive revenue. Now, Canva is structured differently. There's a free plan and then around $144 per year for Pro. And the reason it's more affordable is because you're still doing the work. You're using templates, you're building things yourself. So it's very accessible, especially if you're just getting started, but it's also more manual. Real example how this plays out. So to make this more real, here's how this usually plays out depending on where you are. If you're just starting out, you'll probably open Canva, pick a template, adjust it, and launch your first ads. And that works because your goal at that stage is to just get something live. But then what happens is you run that ad and it either works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, now you're stuck because now you're back into Canva trying to redesign something again. decision without really knowing what to change. And that's where something like AdCreative starts to make more sense. Instead of guessing what to fix, you generate multiple variations and let performance guide you. So you're not relying on your design decisions, you're relying on data, and that's usually the transition point. People start with Canva, then as they get more serious about ads, they move toward tools that help them test faster. So this isn't just a tool decision, it's a stage decision. So if we bring this back to the title, templates versus AI creative generation, this is really what it comes down to. If your goal is to quickly create something that looks good, templates are enough. But if your goal is to figure out what actually performs, then AI generation starts to make more sense because it's not about making one ad, it's about testing multiple and finding what works. Final decision. At this point, the decision becomes a lot simpler. If you like being hands-on, designing things yourself, and you want full control over how your ads look, Canva is going to feel better. If you care more about speed, testing, and performance, and you don't want to spend time designing everything manually, AdCreative is going to feel like a better fit. Neither one is wrong, they're just built for different ways of working. If you want to look at both of these yourself, I left separate links down below so you can click into each one and compare them side by side. And honestly, just spending a few minutes inside both tools will probably make this decision a lot clearer depending on what you're trying to do. If this video helped, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm Erin from AI Academy. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.